You're listening to Two Guys Talking Wine with Michael Pinkus and Andre Prue.
Michael!
Andre! Dang it.
Summer's over.
Yeah, unfortunately. And we've left so much on the table.
Actually, the table's looking pretty empty, minus 3 bottles of wine and a water bottle.
That's beside them. I just was looking at... we had like a whole list of things that we were going to do and people we were going to talk to, and I don't know.
Are you disappointed?
I am. I know we got some great stuff coming up.
Yeah.
And usually we always, have a theme for every year. And
well, this year's been very international, and it's actually been a lot of fun because you've brought some really great wines into this house.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to continue to do it. Like I have more to do, and you know what? The part that depresses me is that I have some great Bordeaux interviews, and I can't get wine to match them. That's the worst part of it.
Well, we're working on it. We actually have our I don't mind saying this out there because it's just paperwork, but you and I have actually started a wine agency.
Yeah.
We're not planning on selling any wine, but it turns out to be able to get bottles of wine that are not represented by wineries, and if they want to send wines to journalists, the only way to legally do it is through an agent.
Yeah.
So you and I have become wine agents.
So we're going to try and see if we can get some wines that we have not been able to get and finish some of these podcasts.
So when you told me who we were talking about today, you were a little bit surprised because I've made no qualms about it that Italy is a weak point in my wine knowledge, but I love learning about it. I would never ever say French wines are better than Italian wines. It's circumstantial.
Well, the Italians would.
I know, and it's I'll tell you what. Before we get to the name of the winery, I'll just share the story real quick. Is when I go to Italy, I often like to poke, where I'll send a note to Guillaume where I'll be like, oh my God, this Italian cheese is so much better than the French cheese. And I usually get a very salty French response back, or I'll say something like, you know what, I think focaccia is a far superior bread to the baguette.
I don't know if you watch John Oliver.
I do, religiously.
This week he said that the baguette was a highly affable...
Oh, he called it a Victoria's Secret model.
Yeah, he said it's a Victoria's Secret model of the bread industry. So
that whole bit was so unbelievably funny, the depressed German bread. Anyways, everyone should check out the John Oliver from the week of September 24th. But you were surprised because you actually brought wines from a winery that I have heard of, that I know, that I've purchased the wines from, that I've enjoyed the wines from. I'm very excited to learn about these.
I know. We have 2 special guests today.
Okay.
They are from Tuscany, and they produce a very unique wine. And they were nice enough to send us the wines through Le Sommelier. That's Bernard.
I have nothing but nice things to say about Bernard. He's been so good to this podcast, to my other podcast, Tasting Together, to me as a journalist, to you as a journalist. Out of all the tiny agencies who are the first to offer us support, Le Sommelier is one of them. On top of the fact that the portfolio is excellent. Yeah, I think in terms of agencies, Le Sommelier is one where when I went to Portugal, half the wineries I wanted to visit were repped by him, and it's not a chicken and egg thing. It's just like I knew where I wanted to go ahead of time, and then when I went to look at who their agents were, it's just like, oh, they're all repped by Bernard.
Yeah,
so
might as well get in touch with him. So, and I met these during Valdarno di Sopra Day, and my post about that is up, so you can actually read about some of the wines I tasted.
Perfect. It'll be linked in the show notes.
So,
wait, before we get too far into this, patreon.com/2guystalkingwine. We need to start saying that at the beginning, because we know that there's like a couple hundred of you that listen to this almost every week. We need a few more of you to start chipping in. We're not asking for a lot of money. $5 a month, and you're now getting access to full unedited interviews that are only available to our Patreon supporters. Correct. So if you're not sick of Michael and I there's even more out there.
There is even more out there. Plus, so what we do obviously is we get these interviews that one of us does on the road. We clip it up a little bit. We discuss it. But if you want just like the interview, me asking a question, Andre asking a question, and the full unedited answer, you can get it. And again, $5 a month will get you behind that paywall. So patreon.com/2guystalkingwine. Andre, speaking of a clip, let's play number 1.
My name is Moritz Rogowski. Not a very Tuscan name because my family comes kind of from all over. My parents started a small winery back in the mid-'80s after the olive trees froze in 85. They planted the first vineyard of a grape variety we call Caberlot. It's a variety which officially does not exist. We're the only winery today to farm it, to vinify it, and to produce wines. We're on the other side of the Arno Valley, in the so-called Valdano di Sopra, quite high up on the Chianti Mountains. We're up at 450 meters. I'm fortunate today to work with my daughter, Kalael. My family is actually originally from Germany. I was born in Frankfurt. I sort of grew up a little bit in Germany, quite a few years in New York City, and then we moved to France.
I'm too German to say that I'm half Italian because it's not true, but I truly feel half Italian, definitely. And I worked now with Moritz for a bit more than 10 years, I have to say, I remember. And I feel very fortunate to have this history in my family. And I am also based in Paris, where I work as a wine journalist.
So if anybody missed that, the winery is Il Carnasciale, and we're talking to Moritz and Carla L. That's his daughter. So that's who we have on the podcast today. And you had heard of Il Carnasciale.
I had heard of Il Carnasciale, and I like that we're diving right into what makes Carnasciale special, and that's they're making wine from a grape that doesn't exist. And they said that in the clip. So like seriously, what the hell is that about?
Yeah, so I know everybody's going to be what the hell is Caberlot, which is the grape, and where did it come from?
I kind of fell into wine. My parents did it out of passion. They discovered an abandoned farmhouse back in 1972, high up on a hill. There was no road, there was no cellar, there was no vineyard. There were 200 olive trees and an old abandoned farmhouse. As I mentioned, the trees froze in 85. My father, always in the back of his mind, had the idea to do something small in wine with very modest means, but I would say very big ideas. Sangiovese back then, the local Sangiovese was very rustic wine, so that was not any sort of inspiration. Through tasting a lot of wines, asking a lot of questions, meeting a lot of people, they came into contact with a winemaker, enologist, Vittorio Fiore, and his agronomist, Remigio Bordini, who put them on track of a variety he had discovered in abandoned vineyards in the late 60s in the north of Italy. So to make a long story short, he said, I have something which might be interesting. I don't know what it is. I think it might be a natural crossing, maybe of Cab Franc and Merlot. My father said, great, I like that. Cab, Merlot, we call it Caberlot, Il Caberlot. They shook hands. And until today, this gentleman's agreement still stands true and is strong because we are the only winery to farm this variety. My parents started with a small vineyard of 0.3 hectares. Today we have 6 small plots, all on different soils, different altitudes, some quite far removed from the winery, for a total of about 5 hectares of what we call Caberlot. Now, as we move on, when we have the opportunity to plant an additional small vineyard, preferably on a different soil, different clima, that's the idea, to really learn within what this variety, how it performs in different vineyards, what it likes, what it doesn't like, and also what we're looking for in the wines. So yes, all of the work, the grafting, so is done within. We still work with Remigio Bordini. He's 81, just like my mother. He's comes around at least once a month. He's in very good shape, very happy and proud of what we've achieved with his variety, and always ready to move forwards.
We've talked about it on previous podcasts. Like, I think it's very exciting that there's a global movement in wine regions to rediscover the indigenous varieties. And I know in Italy, like, they're obviously proud of their indigenous varieties, also places like Portugal. But I'm just really, really curious about this cross between Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. I think it's interesting that they're still in touch with the guy who gave it to them. But it seems really out of place, right? Cab Sauv and Merlot in Tuscany, and like I know, we have Bulgari
They're
and
theoretically
that,
crossed
and
on
that,
their
but, like,
own, yep.
But like, how does this happen? And like, how do they know? How do they know for sure that what they've got is the cross between Cab Sauv and Merlot? And I'm just, why would it be in Tuscany and not in Bordeaux that this happened?
Do you know what? It's really funny that you should ask.
We did a couple of years back prepare everything because I was in touch with one of the co-authors of Wine Grapes, the big book of grapes, together with Jancis Robinson. He said, listen, if you want to know, I can help you with that. He told us exactly what to prepare, at what time of the season, what to collect. And so we prepared everything. And we sat down and we decided not to send it to the lab. Because suddenly we said, it would be kind of cool to find out what we're dealing with, but it could also, we already know too much about too many things, take away maybe a part of our story, take away also this feeling that we have that with every vintage we're learning a little bit more, and we stand quite alone with this variety. We can't just exchange with our neighbors and colleagues, and that of course does allow us to have a very singular, particular wine with a strong identity. So
I'm not going to pour you any Caberlot right away.
Okay.
Because, as I said, they were really nice. They sent us the 3 wines that they make.
Yeah.
And they only make 3 wines. That's it. This is it. This is the portfolio. You're looking at it. And so while we were in Valdarno di Sopra, we found out about this 100% Sangiovese that they make, wild ferment, in cement, aged in stainless, no wood at all. I'm going to let them talk to you about Valdarno di Sopra while we taste the wine, and we'll come back off the other end because we're going to be tasting the 2022 82.
I would say the altitude, the climate. We are on the left bank. We are much closer to the Chianti Classico, so the Galestro soils, very poor soils, rocky, poor soils, not much organic matter. And so, whereas on the right bank, I feel we have a lot of the vines are in the plains. You have soils which accumulate a lot of things, whereas up there, it's very poor, the soils. Plus the fact of the way we vinify, very hands-off, as little manipulation as possible, in order to keep this energy alive within the wines. I think in the Valdarno di Sopra, we have the chance to have this quite new appellation. So there's a nice energy, dynamics. The fact that we're all certified organic, it makes total sense. And the fact that this area of Valdarno di Sopra has a certain history, having been written about just over 300 years ago, really makes sense for us. I think there's room for everyone. There's room for diversity. The left bank, right bank concept is something which we started bringing forwards a few years ago, and I think that makes sense as well. Beyond the geology and the climate, there's also a different mentality.
I love this wine. I'm a label shopper. I've said that on the podcast, so that's a surprise to anyone. I will still pull the trigger on buying a wine because I love the label. I love the label. I don't know, it's just because, so the label is, it's the profile of a guy's face. It's got stripes through it. He's wearing like a pointed hat with like a flag at it. There's a red line right in the middle of the label. But I don't know. I feel like there's just something that feels a little French Canadian or Acadian about like the way the dude looks.
It is a fun little label. It's in a clear bottle, which is odd for a red wine.
Yes,
and it is very. It is made. I guess the best way to put it is in a white wine style. No oak, no anything. I think I said while we were sipping on the wine, it would be great to have thrown this in the fridge. In fact,
totally,
and have that on I think it'd be like a nice hot day type of red. Even
it's not too heavy, it's not too light. I mean, it's not as light as a Gamay or a Beaujolais, but it's not as heavy as like a Moulin à Vent. So kind of like it's definitely not as heavy as a Chianti Classico, but it's not as light as Gamay. I think you're right. Like a chill would be fantastic. But this is definitely a heavy enough red wine that if you wanted to do like a red meat thing, you totally would. You totally could.
Yeah, I think you could do a little red meat, but this is, I guess, their pizza, pasta, burgers wine. This is really what this one's all about.
$47 a bottle in Canada. Like I imagine this is probably more affordable in Italy, but $47 is a lot of money for a pizza, pasta, burgers wine.
I guess so. Anyway, as I said, it's very much in the white wine style, which should bring us to an idea. Do they make white wine? And believe it or not, I did ask that question.
I see a number of colleagues suddenly producing white. There's a big interest in Trebbiano. There's an interest for some wineries to produce sort of a fast, easy white, which,
It was not what led us to...
No, not at all. For us, it was more the idea...
Diversity, I would say.
We like to keep our team busy. We have 2 full-time in-house winemakers, enologists. We like to keep them on the ball and to keep them questioning and going forwards. And the idea was to maybe try to plant a variety, not necessarily Tuscan, nor Italian, not French, but something from somewhere else, variety which, in our opinion, could maybe cope with a certain global warming, and at the same time produce wines of energy and vibrancy and good acidity and so. That's all I will tell you concerning the white project, because we're not quite sure yet if what we've started to do will actually work.
One of the things I really appreciate about a winery like this, what I appreciate about Bulgari in general is, we spent a lot of time talking about Bordeaux, Premier, Grand Cru Classé, Bordeaux, is those wines are so far out of reach that even the second wines are often unaffordable now. And the nice thing about Il Carnasciale is we have this entry-level, unique Sangiovese, $47 a bottle. Like, fine, maybe it's not the quick and easy pizza pasta, but it's not out of reach.
It's not, but it's not. This is still a wine lover's winery. Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
Like you don't go there like you would for a yellowtail, right? It's not. You have to like wine enough to know that their wines are going to be worth it.
But the thing is, if you're just beginning that journey, like if you're someone like me 15 years ago on a radio salary where you can't afford the almost $300 for a bottle of Caberlot, I can afford $47, so I can say I've at least tasted the Carnasciale wines. And I think the structure of that portfolio is critical because, yes, we're talking about a different beast, a different animal, but like this Sangiovese is delicious. It doesn't have the tomato stem I usually find from like Chianti Classico. And the thing I'm learning from you with all the Sangiovese that we've tasted over the course of this year is just how versatile that grape is.
It reminds me of the time that we, I think it was during the Il Burro podcast that we tried the straight Sangiovese, and you were like, I can't believe this is Sangiovese.
Well, because I have an idea in my head of what and it's also what I'm looking for, because like I've said on the podcast, I don't know a ton about Italy, but I love reaching for a bottle of Chianti Classico from what we've learned over the years. I look for the Rooster. I know the difference between a Reserva, a Gran Reserva, and a regular one. Like there's just a lot of stuff going on with Chianti Classico, and that I love with, like you said, pizza, pasta, burgers. Like Sangiovese is it for me because you get that savoriness to go with it that isn't bell pepper,
So now it's time to get to the main event. We've talked Sangiovese, and you could talk. Being in Tuscany, you could talk Sangiovese to death, to tell you the truth, because it's what they make. Now, in this clip, you're probably going to hear a friend of the podcast, Christer Bicklem. We interviewed them together, and because there's a lot of speculation about where this grape came from and how it came into their possession. Now, we've heard them talk about it, but in this conversation, it brings you up to speed. And the thought is that the grape itself comes primarily from the north and the Veneto region.
Let me just guess that it might have been what we call the Métis in French.
Cabernet and Merlot, those sort of French varieties are common traditional varieties in that part of the.
So it could be like Cabernet Sauvignon, just variety happening by itself in the vineyard or something.
Now we like to think of a natural crossing. It could also be a Cabernet Franc with a virus. It could be lots of things.
It's a UFO.
We have
it like this, a diva UFO.
We do have 10 rows of Cab Franc which were planted. It was actually an error by the Vivaio that was preparing the plants. They sent us Cab Franc instead of Caberlot, and we planted them. And I like to say that our life would be a lot easier if we were farming Cab Franc.
There's a difference in the vineyard.
It's very regular production.
It's not this, but you cannot really tell what it is.
Yeah.
Well, Cabernet Franc can be quite difficult as well. That's also a bit of a diva. It's wonderful when it's fully ripe, just as a Cheval Blanc, and you know. But it can be really green as well. So
we're in a cooler part of Tuscany. The nights are cool, the days get hot. We have always a good ventilation. So the fact of being altitudes, the vineyards are all between 450 and 240 meters. Good ventilation, cool nights, warm days. So we do manage to bring our grapes, including those 10 rows of Cab Franc, to perfect ripeness.
So we're going to dive into. I'm gonna pour for you, Andre, a little bit of the 2022 Botte Grande.
This is their second wine.
This is their second wine.
Yes.
So from 2019. It's the declassified fruit that comes. When they bring it to the main winery, they obviously declassify this stuff. It's
interesting.
Usually taken from the younger vines. It's aged in larger neutral barrels, and they're trying to get the purity of the Caberlot out of these grapes. While we taste it and then come back on the other end, we're going to talk about, or they're going to talk about, the grape's profile in the vineyard.
Let's start from the vineyards. I think it's the most important part because Caberlot is such a diva. It's a very capricious grape variety, and that's something I like to mention because we learned a lot through the years. Of course, before my time as well. But as Moritz mentioned, we have different plots, different soils, and we really got to understand what this variety likes. But still, it has so much mystery to me because a same plant can give you like 5-6 clusters one year, and the next year have no grape, not a single grape. And you're just like, come on, what are you trying to tell us? So slowly, we learned. And I would say we are definitely in the Cabernet Franc family.
Yes.
Also on the ampelographic profile. Then in the cellar, we didn't really change anything.
No, just to come back quickly to the vineyard. The first vineyard was planted high density, about 11,000 plants per hectare, so 3,600 plants on 0.34 hectares. Goblet, Albarello. The other vineyards all have different methods of vine training and culture according to the soils, according to the altitude and the exposure. What we know, it's a late ripening variety. It's a variety meaning that we usually start the harvest in the last days of September, first days of October. It's a variety which has a few weak points during the season. But once we've mastered these, it's a variety which likes heat, which needs heat. At the end of the season, a bit of heat in order to properly ripen. And again, it's a variety that produces surprisingly low sugar, which I guess was a problem when they first tried it out back in the 80s, and saying this stuff, not only does it hardly produce any grapes, it's not ripe. Very low sugar, which means low potential alcohol, which today is somewhat of a blessing.
I know that it's not low alcohol. Like, it is still 13.5. But, I mean, like...
Could be higher.
It could be higher, especially with heat. And I know it seems funny that we just broke in after that clip with the alcohol, but we were both checking it out when he said it's low sugar, because this is a dry wine. Like there's no doubt about it.
It's ripe. I'm getting. Oh, you go ahead. You're about to give tasting notes.
I was going to say it's a little on the green side. I think I'm getting the Cabernet part of it. There's a touch of like a green pepper, a savory note.
I'm not sure I'm ready to give bell pepper as the tasting note, but I do agree that there's a savoriness to it.
It had a very strange cork to it too. That had some. It looked like it had a lot of wine on the top of the cork. And obviously, when I pulled the cork, it had a lot of wine on the bottom of the cork, but there was nothing on the cork. It hadn't leaked. And yet the sleeve was full of wine. So
I think I better taste a little bit.
I'm going to taste a little more.
Okay, so here's the deal: I think even with the savory note, it's definitely riper than most Loire wines that we get here, and I think that this is, in spirit, like it's got a little bit of Niagara in it.
I could see that.
Like good Niagara. We're not talking mediocre Niagara. We're talking good Niagara.
There is a Niagara sense to it. And again, I want to go back to there's a savoriness where this one just it's like Niagara Cab in an almost ripe season.
Yeah, perfect.
Not 2020, but maybe like an 18. Maybe,
but in the hands of a good producer like Craig McDonald at Trius or Greg Yemen at Organized Crime, or
somebody who knows what they're doing.
Richie at Fielding, people who know
Correct.
how to deal with it.
You're getting a savoriness. You're getting some dark fruit. There's a lot going on here. This is not a one-trick pony, and it's the young fruit. That's what we have to keep remembering.
Here's the cool thing. Here is the cool thing that I think is an important distinction to make. Is for a lot of wineries in Bordeaux and a lot of wineries, frankly, in Niagara, this is just how it typically works when you make a second wine. Is you do barrel selection. You take your best barrels, you push them forward, you make the blend, and you end up with your Acura, which is the marquee brand of Honda, and all the other barrels get blended into making your Honda Civic good, reliable, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But what you've said, and what everyone has said so far, is that the decision to make this wine happens in the vineyard. This is made with the fruit that ends up in neutral barrels. This is not a barrel selection. They've made the choice in the vineyard that this fruit is destined to be the Botte Grande, the big boot.
The big barrel. Botte.
Right.
Barrel. Big. Okay. But it goes into large neutral barrels.
Yeah.
So it's mostly the younger vines. Now, obviously, we're talking about the wine here as we see it, but you know what? We should hear what I always like talking to winemakers, telling us what we should be smelling, what we should be tasting, what they get. And they obviously have many more years that they've been doing it. So let's see how it compares to what we just said.
We did not. Maybe some people did. But we haven't heard about him.
My father, your grandfather, Kalela, unfortunately did not meet my father. He passed away. He knew that Isabel, my wife, was pregnant. And my father died at a very young age at a heart attack, unfortunately. But I remember back then, he was a creative guy in advertising, working for a Swiss company, so lots of ideas. And from the very beginning, he felt that we had something special here. And he loved the idea of reaching out. I remember he had contacts. He was working with somebody at New Zealand. He was talking with Musar, Oshar family in the Lebanon, of doing something. So these were ideas I think he immediately had to thinking we have to try this out somewhere else. We have to see what it gives. It's unique. It has potential. And today we are alone. There were a few experimental vineyards back in the 80s. We know that through Remigio Bordini, the Grand Bis. We also know that up to today, Pinkus pulled out. So
it was a windy day when you were recording that.
Yeah, we were on a hill, and if you remember going back to the Il Burro interview,
yep,
same day.
Okay.
Except Ferragamo took us to a completely different part of the winery, and he took us to an even windier part. We were, I don't know why he did that, but he took us to a spot that was absolutely gorgeous.
Oh my God.
And it was windy. Here we were at least blocked by trees and a brick wall. That's why I went there, so that we wouldn't have it. But here we are. Now we're pouring the big gun. We are pouring the Caberlot. I love that they call this a demi mag, and it's actually explained in the clip we're going to hear. And they talk about it in terms of Bordeaux and
dude. But before we throw to the clip, like the nose on this wine is bonkers. This is dense and juicy, not overripe. Like, this is the pinnacle of old world Bordeaux variety style winemaking. This is on the nose. I can't wait to talk about what it tastes like. Should we roll the clip?
Do it.
I would say white pepper, like something floral but spicy at the same time. What I like is that often you have a very intense nose, but then you're surprised by the mouth that has a fluidity, and it's somehow it's concentrated but light. It's a wine with volume but not a big density. So I really like the fact that there is a movement in the wine, and you feel the wine knows where he's going. And that's, to me, it's hard to find. Of course, I love Cabernet Franc. I can really love some Merlot, but it's the perfect balance between both, I would say.
But another one of my father's big ideas back then from the very beginning was to bottle my So Caberlot was bottled, but from the first bottle 1988 until 2013, only magnums, 300 something magnums at first, about 3,000 magnums. A few years later, then we started coming out with this edition, what we call demi-magnums. At 750s, we call it demi-magnums, which are reserved for some of the years the restaurants time opens the doors. The cellar work is very central. Everything is, of course, harvested there, but we spend almost 3 weeks harvesting. These will go into the vineyard, so really selecting the right moment to bring in this fruit, maybe leave a few more days for another part of the vineyard. Everything is destemmed, fermentation in stainless steel, I would say as spontaneous as possible, because according to the quality of the fruit, the temperatures, the weather conditions, we keep things as natural and spontaneous as possible. But then again, Peter, who used to work with us, he said he doesn't want any punk inside the tanks. So very simple vinification, very clean vinification, and then a malolactic fermentation, some in tank, most of it in barrels. The wines spend about 22 months in barrels. We rack them only once. It's very hands-off. It's kind of a Burgundian approach, very hands-off. We have about 40 barrels a year. We work with 4 different coopers, so there's not one cooper who has the monopoly of our cellar. They come at least once a year to taste. All of this in order to produce wines which have a very distinct aromatic profile, which keep their natural energy and vibrancy. The wood is there in order to carry the wines and not to mark the wines.
I love the idea of honest winemaking. I think we have, I think every wine region, this is something you and I have been critical of, is people who pass off shoddy winemaking as brilliant, calculated decisions.
Or natural.
But that's it. When you say that you're doing things as natural as possible, frankly, that's something I can proudly say with the ADX Wine Company. I love indigenous ferments. I think it brings another layer of character from the vineyard. I think it brings a character of the region. But you do sometimes end up with a year, like in 2020, our Chardonnay, where the indigenous yeast just didn't have the fortitude to survive a 13.5%, 14% Chardonnay, which is what Mother Nature gave us. We had to inoculate it with purchased yeast to get it over the finish line. But here's the thing is, I'm not going to go to a client and say, oh yes, the ADX Wine Company, we are so natural, we do indigenous ferments, and we just do whatever we want to make sure we do nothing to the wine. No, we make sure that
I hope you wouldn't use that voice either.
What I just say is I think when we're talking about wine lovers' wineries and wine lovers' wines, honesty about what goes into the winemaking process is what customers are looking for. And I don't think anyone truly cares if it's indigenous or not. If the wine tastes good, if you can go there and just be like, hey, you know what? I chose to use this strain of yeast because, I talked to the winemaker from this winery in Bordeaux and I was really curious what it would do to the grapes. And, that's the choice that we made.
I think that as long as you're not trying to kill your customer, the customer will probably go along with your decisions as long as you give them a good bottle of wine at a good price that they can understand. And that's what I think. I think it's all about understanding what's going into the wine and not getting too pompous about, all the things that you may have done.
Yeah.
Even myself as a writer, you go to some of these places, you're standing in the cellar and the winemaker goes waxing poetic about some of the things he did, and your eyes glaze over just like any consumer would, and you're like, I don't care. Let me taste the damn thing and see if it's any good.
Ooh, well, and see, I'm kind of on the other side of it where I would never pretend to be a winemaker. I would never tell Vadim and Adam what to do when it comes to the ADX winemaking. But the thing is, I pay attention. I ask a lot of questions. It's the journalist in me.
Correct, but
the moment I set foot in a cellar and I can tell that I'm being sold marketing as opposed to honesty, I've learned enough to tell the moment the bullshit starts.
I realize the bullshit starts when they don't want me to taste it until they've gone through their complete description of how it was made. And that's usually a sign that they're trying to sell me on the wine and not let the wine sell me. I think when you taste the wine, then you're curious, and you get a good bottle of wine, you get a good tasting, and you're like, this is a really nice bottle. Now I'm very interested in how you did it.
Totally.
But if you have to sit there for 20 minutes to tell me how you made it and why this is going to be the best wine I've ever tasted, you bet I'm getting a shellac show.
You know, I I agree with you like wholeheartedly, and it is one of the things where it is kind of funny sometimes. Where I'm sure this happened to you as a journalist, where you meet really nice, passionate people, and like when you set foot in the winery and you meet these people, it's just like, oh God, I hope the wines are as good as these people are nice.
Yes,
because I just want to say nice things about them. And the thing is, you and I as journalists is just like, I'll be frank. There's a lot of wineries where I've tasted their wines. And because I like the people so much, I wouldn't write anything about them because I don't want to make things difficult. But like, it's nice when you meet nice people who make really nice wine.
I especially like those people when I can come back another time.
Yeah.
And they've improved. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, I'm gonna keep my eye on these folks, and I'm gonna see what's going on, and hope to God that they get better.
Can I give a quick shout out?
Sure.
I think Yvonne in Quebec at Domaine Saint Jacques is one of those people.
Oh, yeah, I remember. We went there once.
And every time I taste those wines, it still feels like, I think it's like following an NHL prospect from a young age. I don't think that...
like somebody from the Montreal Canadiens, being that you're in Quebec.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's right on Crave right now. The rebuild happens,
let's say it's part of the rebuild. The thing is, like, I'm pretty sure that like Domaine Saint Jacques is like a solid AHL player, and they're about to get called up to the big leagues.
So I back to Il Carnasciale.
Let's do it.
This wine, I just, both of us, I think we had eye roll moments, like eye roll where they go back into our head and like, this is fantastic.
Oh, this wine's amazing.
So this bottle is going to be gone by the end of the evening. I have a feeling. But I was standing in front of the second generation and the third generation of this winery. And it seemed only right to now focus one of my questions towards Carla L. And I wanted to ask her if she had any plans for the future of the winery once she actually got hold of the reins.
At some point, you'll take over the winery. Am I correct?
Who knows?
Maybe she already has. Is there anything that you would change?
That I would change?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I should know about this.
I wouldn't say change because I don't really like the idea of a revolution. I like the idea of evolution. So things will definitely change, but in a way that would be just a continuity, with my touch, I guess.
I mean, I do have to say we're a very small, modest, family-run, family-owned winery. We live for what we do, but we also live from what we do. So it's a serious job. We have quite a big team. We have 9 people in the team, which is a lot for such a small winery. We also have a number of projects. We recently purchased 4 hectares, which a part of is Sangiovese, a part will be grafted into Caberlot. We're working on a white project for 4 or 5 years now, and not one bottle has been released so far.
There was a lot in that clip, and my favorite thing that Carla L said was evolution, not revolution.
Yeah.
And I think that's critically important. When we talk about the wine business, especially when you're a wine lover's winery, your business, I say business with a capital B, is the intersection of art versus winemaking, right?
So what my favorite part of that clip is right at the beginning where she says, "Oh, I haven't thought of that, but hold on a second," and then he's like, I need to hear this too. It's like Papa's not quite ready to let go because at the beginning he's like, oh, maybe she's already in charge. And then she's like, well, let's see what I would change. And he's like, wait a second, I want to know. So you can tell that he's
and it's the sort of thing where like I would want to
100% ready to let go.
But I would want to be the fly on the wall of like certain winemaking decisions because like I visited a winery in Champagne, Guido Forget. Bertil is a young woman, but she works with her dad on the winemaking, and she was pretty blunt with me about the fact that her and her dad don't always agree on winemaking decisions, but sometimes he has to let her do her own thing.
Well, she's a wine journalist, and as journalists, we always probably have an idea of what we would do differently. Maybe it's the marketing side. Maybe it's the maybe I wouldn't put it in barrel so long. Maybe this, maybe that. We always have just an idea.
I try to be careful. I try to be careful about throwing journalists under the bus in this situation, because like I know for myself, and I really just know for myself in particular, is I think one of my strengths is knowing where my expertise ends and the other begins. And I said it earlier, where like I don't have a winemaking background. I would never tell the winemaking team at ADX what to do. So it's got to be interesting what Carla L is thinking, and she may have held back a bit.
I think she might have. She's got that kind of. If you meet her in person, she has that little smile that says, "I'm thinking something, but I'm telling you this." And you know, it's. I like that they have other projects on the go. They're not quite ready to show everything. They want to bring everything under one roof. It turns out that they have a lot of little projects in little places, so they're bringing stuff under one roof. But I always end my interviews kind of the same way. I always ask kind of an irreverent question about, you know, what wines you would be drinking now, what wines would you pull out of the cellar, you know, just in case our listeners out there have some Caberlot out there, have an Autant-à-Douai. And then I seem to have sparked a little debate between father and daughter here.
I would say 99 because I will never forget this wine. Currently, I would say. And, 2019 as a young vintage still is one of my favorite vintages ever. I have to say, I've never had such a fleshy, vibrating Cabernet that drinks so well, so young.
I would say as a younger wine, I would lean towards 2020, which is a very aromatic. It's a more delicate vintage, whereas 19 has a long history. 21, fabulous vintage. We'll taste it at the Anteprima. Our wines, we keep them for about 4 years before release. 22 months in the barrel and then another 18 months in the bottle. So almost 4 years. This also because we like to release wines which can be tasted. In Italy, they like to drink their wines young. There's always a certain impatience for the new vintage.
And I'm passionate about all vintages.
Yeah.
And it's quite touching when you taste old wines, including old Caberlot, like the structure and the aromatics that's developed. It's very fine, very delicate, and it's actually quite surprising for when you think Cabernet Franc, Merlot, you often, think about wines.
Well, like many wines, they will digest the fruit, they will digest the energy of the vintage, and so it will start going into very floral, spicy aromas. And so, honestly, we've never had a magnum of Cabernet that was crumbling or falling apart or really on its decline. Even going back to the first vintages, 88, the wines, they are very pure. They gain in an incredible elegance and they become more and more unique in this aromatic profile, a lot around pepper and...
if someone has 88 in his cellar, drink it now.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I drink it once only. The handwriting of my grandfather that I never met.
Yes. So I would say our wines... Otherwise, what? The leaner vintage is 2014, for example. Delicious in the second wine, a Carnasciale, and the Cabernet of 2014 also is fabulous.
Andre, I hope you learned something.
I did not. But I mean, you kind of messed up on this, though. Like, you brought a unicorn into this house. How am I supposed to learn something from a unicorn? Here's what I learned. I want to go to the winery because I want to see what the grapes look like. I want to see what the vineyards look like. I think I would want to go there
and DNA test.
You know what? You know what? I'll tell you what. I am going to give the winery a pass on the not wanting to burst their own bubble in case they were to find out that this is just a clone of Cabernet Franc, blah blah blah.
Tempranillo.
That's it. We could wine nerd it up though. But one of my favorite ad campaigns from when I was growing up, and I'm sure you probably love this ad campaign too, the Caramilk Secret.
Yes.
Like, it's one of those things where, like, I'm married to a pastry chef. The Caramilk Secret is really not that big of a secret, but, like, it was a lot of fun to just watch those commercials and be like, how do they get the caramel inside the caramel?
But as a kid, when you saw it,
yeah,
you probably did go, how do they do that?
But you know what? But that's the thing.
You're older now. You know how they do it. But what I'm saying is,
wine can be like that. And in this case, I'm gonna say that Caberlot is my Caramilk Secret, and I don't care. I don't care what it actually is because it tastes delicious, and I don't want to burst this family's bubble.
I think you're completely right. I think we should leave it alone, but drink the hell out of it, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Meanwhile, I do have some thank yous, of course. Il Carnasciale, thank you very much to Moritz and Carla L. for your time, for your honesty. You guys were fantastic, for sending us these 3 wines. I know you sent them, and you sent them properly through your agent, who is Le Sommelier, and Bernard Stromwasser. I guess I get that right, do I? Stromwasser?
I think you need to say it with a Germanic accent. It'd be
Bernard Stromwasser.
Stromwasser.
Okay.
Sorry, Bernard.
Yeah. So thank you, Bernard, for bringing them in. I always love when an agent just,
Dude, my cheeks hurt from smiling just because, like, I don't know, like, it's kind of one of those moments in serendipity where, like, I discovered this winery because I had a friend who did a harvest there. You told me we were talking about this winery, and I was just like, I've had these wines, I know these wines, but, like, now I'm excited to learn about these.
But did you know these wines? That's the question. You've had a bottle.
No, but that's my favorite thing, because it's the same reason why I love Henry Giraud, is I found the wines, I fell in love with the wines. And then when I got to know more about the wines, it didn't make me love them less. You know, they have the adage, don't meet your heroes. Well, I've got a pretty good track record this year. I haven't met Moritz and Carla L., but I want to after this interview.
They're a lot of fun. And, well, to him, you'd just go to Italy. And for her, turns out you just go to France,
yeah.
go to Paris. So it's a great trip all around. Also, since we're at the end here, you want to hear more great interviews, Patreon.
Hey, are we not going to put the whole interview with Moritz and Carla L on Patreon? And then if you give $5 a month, we can hear you and Krister Bicklem having a great conversation with these wonderful people.
It's a good 25-minute conversation with them.
And what's the website again that people can sign up to get this great content, Michael?
That would be patreon.com/2 Guys Talking Wine.
Boom.
And yeah, that's where we put behind the paywall. We hope you enjoy that. We hope that you will give us that $5 a month. It doesn't take a lot to keep this podcast going, but on the other hand,
the bill's coming in. We got to pay for our hosting this month,
and we got to talk to people that you want to hear.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in more about Il Caberlot, about Il Carnasciale, then you know what? Listen behind that paywall. We have more interviews coming up, and we will, and you'll want to.
Andre Prue of AndreWineReview.ca at Andre Wine Review. It has come to my attention that I've been neglecting both my website and my social media, but...
All right, and on that note, I'm Michael Pinkus of MichaelPincusWineReview.com. I am slowly updating everything. Videos come out twice a week, and I'm trying to keep Andre on track so he doesn't yell at you all.
We just ordered a championship belt this week. I wonder what that's for.
Oh, there's something so exciting coming up. Good night.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Two Guys Talking Wine on iTunes.
Two Guys Talking Wine is produced by Adam Duran and Ken Little.